to Florida's #1 hockey podcast, the Cats and Bolts. We got ourselves a Stanley Cup Final. 3, 2, 1.
We lost the music. Guys, welcome back. We are in episode 37. I'm getting ahead of myself. 37, season 2 of the Cats and Bolts podcast. I am Serena Taylor. I fired Rod Peterson. He is no longer here. I'm just kidding. Rod, he's got to chime in. Rod is back in Canada. We're going to bring him in 2 seconds. But as you guys know, we are going hot straight into the Stanley Cup. We're going into it. It's a rematch of last year's final. So what better way to bring everybody in? Joshua already saying, no Rod today. Yeah, we're good. All right, let's go. Bring Roddy in because he is chomping at the bit from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
The people want me. The people want me. Let's go.
I love the choice of bell, though, Rod. I love that bell as opposed to that cowbell that we have here that I think it's still, I can see it in the box, and I am not bringing that thing out. We're going to give everybody a break. So, first of all, how is 6 feet from the moose's ass?
We're in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. 6 hours from Edmonton. It's nice. It's cool. I was just telling Ben at night, I sleep with the window open, bundled up in bed. It's nice. It's Western Canada in summer. Can't be better. You're holding yourself up pretty well, given the fact your Oilers are playing tonight and opening the Stanley Cup.
There is nothing okay about me, but I will say this. I think I got it all out of my system last year. I was an absolute wreck last year. And this year, it's not comforting by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that I'm so numb after last year and I'm just wore out. I can't even possibly imagine. It just is what it is, right? So let's get the comments coming. Jason in Red Deer says, good day, hockey fans, and good day, Serena. I know everybody wants to see me, not Rod, but that's okay. I didn't even
believe that.
I feel terrible because I didn't put anything on the desk. I didn't bring anything in. And part of the reason is because I knew we were going to be in a close-up shot like this. So if I would have put a bunch of stuff on the desk, it wouldn't have done anything. But
whatever
literally,
excuses make you feel better.
We're on a bare desk here, people. Bare desk. I was on Skinny Merlino podcast a couple weeks ago, and I said to Ben, look at this thing. I got my coffee, my phone, and my laptop. And I was like, Ben, this desk looks so naked. It's so weird being on somebody else's podcast, and there's not a million things on it. But listen, we all know what's happening. We don't need to put it on the desk. So we got a lot of viewers. JC says, hello, Serena. Just wondering, will the Oilers go golfing with the Leafs when they lose the series?
Ba-boom.
The Leafs are already tired from golfing. They've been golfing so much, they don't even know what's going on. Jason in Red Deer says, for the record, Rod, I made the comment before they brought you in, so didn't think you were going to be on. I love you too, Rod. Yeah. Okay. The tribe has spoken. It's all good. Now, I was on the Rod Peterson show 3 hours ago, and I was pretty tame because that's on national television. This can say whatever we want. But Rod and I were chatting about some good stuff. So, Roddy, what do you want to specifically hit on right away here?
You know what? Let's get to the serious stuff right now. Let's go to the checklist that you know that I always like to do for playoff series. And I've done it with my pundits up here. I'd like to do it with you. And you know what those checklists are. We've been doing this long enough. Goaltending, defense, forwards, coaching, special teams, and the X factor for this series. Are you good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Well, actually, after you adjourned my show today, people said, can you ask Serena who's got the edge in the goaltending battle here? And I said, I don't need to ask her. She knows. Everybody knows. It's Bob. You could put Bob up against 15 other goalies in these Stanley Cup playoffs. They would still have the checklist or a check mark. That's my thing. In this series, when we go down this list here, we start with in goal. It's the Panthers have the check in Bob, but I shouldn't actually speak for you. Is Stuart Skinner going to go all world God mode and somehow out goaltend Bob in this series? Because I can't see that happening.
This is how I look at it. You don't need to out goaltend the other goaltender. You need to outscore the other team, but it's also up to the guys in front of you. So is Skinner going to be a great Skinner? Yeah, probably. I said this in the first round. The best thing that happened for Stuart Skinner was sitting, because the same thing happened last year. And when he gets a little slap on the pee-pee or whatever you want to call it, and he comes in and he's on fire. And he knew that with Pickard getting hurt, his life was on the line playing at Edmonton. And he's been really good. It doesn't matter. The thing that's really going to make the biggest difference is Bobrovsky. If he's the great Bobrovsky or if he's a good Bobrovsky. Because in my opinion, that's the major difference here.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I am a goalie guy, as we all know. I love all goalies, and I specifically love Stuart Skinner. I just think Bob's proven. Rich Sutter was on my show yesterday from the famous hockey-playing Sutter family, and he goes, Bob's proven, Stuart's not. Maybe by the end of this series, Skinner will have that Stanley Cup. We don't know. Then he's proven, right?
Well,
but Bob doesn't have anything to prove.
Listen, I don't know. I don't look at it like that. And here's why. Bobrovsky, in my opinion, in 2023, when Florida lost to Vegas in the final, to me, Bobrovsky proved his worth as a goaltender in the playoffs. Bobrovsky was the reason the Panthers made it to the final. So they lost in the final. In my opinion, Bobrovsky proved that he's the best. He played better in 2023 than he did in 2024. He still was obviously fantastic last year, but I think he's proven himself. I think that Stuart Skinner has proven that he's good enough to take his team to a Stanley Cup win. Look at last year. They lost by 1 goal in Game 7, none of which was Stuart Skinner's fault. So I don't think that winning a Stanley Cup automatically proves that you're a proven goaltender. I think that Stuart Skinner, even if the Oilers win, everyone's not all of a sudden going to be like, oh, well, now I get it. Now Stuart Skinner's the man. He's already shown what he's going to show, and so is Bob.
Right or wrong, it's the Stanley Cup that gets you into the Hall of Fame. Right or wrong, I don't make the rules. Bob's proven. That's the way that we look at it. By the way, from the audience, Joshua Dorr writes in, says, what Skinner will the Oilers get? We don't know until tonight and throughout this series. That we don't know the answer to that. I'm hoping that we get his best. Freddie from Winnipeg writes in, he says, hey guys, first timer here. Rod told me to be here. LOL. Show me what you got. That's what we're doing. Adrian from the Rainy Day podcast in South Florida writes in, he says, can't wait for the game. It was him, Serena, that asked me last night if there will be any fights in this series. We addressed that on my show today, Adrian, and we don't think there will be unless a game gets out of hand. Okay, moving along. I'll try to get to as many of your questions as we can, but defense. Do you care what the other pundits had to say, or do you just want to take a swing at it yourself?
I don't even listen. I don't watch. I don't listen. I can't.
Who's got the better D?
I don't know. Who's playing? Okay, defensemen. I would say that Edmonton is getting a lot more out of their guys overall than Florida is. But Florida's getting guys like Mikko Makela, or what's his name? With the
Matthias Ekholm.
No.
Oh, Nico
Mikkola. I literally did not say Mikko Makela on purpose. I swear to God. Nico Mikkola, in my opinion, has been an incredible defenseman for Florida.
Like Paul Coffey.
Well, I just don't. Well, but harsher. I just don't think that I didn't see that coming from him. He's a good player, but I think that it's sixes because Darnell Nurse is playing really well, and I'm personally not a huge fan. So, and it got guys like Troy Stetcher are playing really good for Edmonton as well. And I mean, Brett Kulak is that guy that he's just kind of an unsung hero for them. He just never makes mistakes. So I think they're even. I don't know if I had to say, I'd say maybe Edmonton's defense is playing a bit better, but because I don't know. That's a tough one.
That's all good. We'll try to get to as many comments as we can as we roll. Rich Sutter said it was a wash. It was even. Kevin Carius gave it slightly to Edmonton, but he's an Edmonton guy from Sports 1440 Edmonton. And I'll give it to Florida just because we've been watching them all year, and I think there's another gear for certain guys to go to. Ekblad has been leading the Panthers in points. I've been a fan of his game all year long. Gustav Forsling's been great. I think he could be better. I think they want more out of Seth Jones. And on the hunger side, which we're going to get to, there's a lot of guys on this Panthers team that don't have Stanley Cups, and Nate Schmidt comes to top of mind for me, along with Seth Jones. So I'll give Florida a very slight edge. Forwards, this will piss off Panther fans, but it's not a debate.
No,
it's Edmonton based on two guys. You can't even argue who's got the best, what the check mark goes on the forwards.
It's not even close. But to be fair, I haven't seen any Panthers fans trying to argue that point.
No.
Literally, like they're not. They've been very realistic about the whole thing. And I just, even like, I don't talk to too many I don't see too many Panthers fans, like I was saying on the Rod Peterson show. It's not a buzz around here. There's no buzz. But there is one guy that goes to my gym that he always wants to talk about hockey. And he's a Panthers fan. And he realized that I was an Oilers fan because what I was wearing or something the one day. And he's like, the other day he walked by me, he goes, I'm concerned. But he goes, listen, you guys have the best player on the planet. And that says a lot. Like, I don't care, people, if they want to think McDavid's a baby or whatever. Like, go cry me a river. I don't really care. But the conversation kind of goes back to, talking to people around here that aren't Panthers fans, like Leafs fans. And their thing is the way they see Connor McDavid is that as Leafs fans, they don't see that passion and that fire and that leadership from their captain, which is why it's even more eye-opening for them. I think throughout the 80s, as Oilers fans, we got spoiled. We had Wayne, and it was like, oh man, this is just great. And then the next captain was Mark Messier. Well, what are you kidding me? Like, we are dialed in here. Everybody's just cruising along. We don't have to worry about our captain. Edmonton's never had to worry about not having a strong captain. And so now we get spoiled, right? And it's just and Barkov is who he is. Last year in the finals, I feel like Barkov was the only Panther that was solid the entire Stanley Cup final. He worked so hard, but the biggest thing is when you have the best player on the planet that can undress absolutely anybody, it can make a difference. McDavid is a game difference maker.
Fair. Joshua Dorr writes in, he says, McDavid is the best player in the world, and that's final. Nobody's arguing that. The problem was he couldn't do it alone last year. And when I say that, it's not like the other Oilers didn't try, but Draisaitl was injured. He didn't have a goal in the entire series. We found out afterwards how injured he was. That's not the case this year, which is a whole other thing. I didn't like this break at all, having to wait almost a week before the Stanley Cup Final started. But now we're here, and it's starting tonight. I could find other things to do. They said they delayed it to coordinate with the NBA Finals. They did it to build up hype, shows like this, which I'm all for, and logistics and travel, and the rest, because it's the two furthest geographical points Stanley Cup Finals have ever seen. But the thing with McDavid, it wasn't enough last year for him. But I'm a McDavid fan. So I was just on Global National News, and they talked about what it would mean for the Oilers to win and for Connor McDavid, and I said I would be very happy for him. Somebody said to me this morning, Oilers win this Stanley Cup, McDavid automatically goes on Mount Rushmore. Because the only thing holding him back was that he hadn't won a Stanley Cup. His legacy, do you feel that his legacy doesn't hinge on this series, but would be augmented with a win in this series? Because he's got a long career left.
Wow.
If it's not this one, he will win a Stanley Cup. I thought that was a very interesting point by the guy.
It's a very interesting point, but I've just never been the person, just like based on the conversation about whether or not Skinner is proven or Bob is proven. I don't think that winning a Stanley Cup should constitute your value as a player. Connor McDavid is the best overall skilled hockey player that the game has literally ever seen by far. And this is coming from a Wayne fan. Nobody even comes close to McDavid. Ask the other players. They're almost embarrassed when they step on the ice because they know how good he is. So in my opinion, it's like, oh, this shoots him to Mount Rushmore. This shoots him to the Hall of Fame. Dude, the guy's the best player to ever play the game.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a team sport, and then going into the Hall of Fame is an individual accomplishment. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky. But you can't say McDavid's not proven because he didn't win a Stanley Cup, or doesn't belong on Mount Rushmore because he didn't win a Stanley Cup. Give me a break. The guy is the best.
You actually can say that. Jason in Red Deer has written in. He goes, championships don't make you great. Just ask Dan Marino, Jerome again. Yeah, we live in South Florida, and it comes up in my circles every day. You don't want to be in the club of best player to never win a Super Bowl, best player to never win a Stanley Cup. That's what we're talking about here. I don't think for a second that doesn't keep Dan Marino up at night. Or the Marcel Dion's, the greatest player to never win a Stanley Cup. I
can't. And that, again, that's a great point right there. Somebody whose career is long over, Marcel Dion, what a perfect example. It's like saying, okay, so Jean Beliveau in total won 17 Stanley Cups. So you're saying from the ice to the front office, you're saying he's 17 times better than Marcel Dion because that's what I'm saying, right? It's like you can't judge a player's worth based on whether or not they won a championship. And I'm tired of people doing that to Connor McDavid. Oh, but he's never won a Stanley Cup. Get the fuck out of here. Stop with that.
I don't make the rules.
There
That's
aren't
just
rules.
the discussion in sports. Yeah. Freddie in Winnipeg asked a question that a lot of people have regarding injuries. He says Edmonton will miss Hyman for his hitting, which surprised me. He would have slowed down the Panthers offense. I think because the Panthers are 100% healthy. It sounds like going into this series, but Hyman won't play. How big of a factor is that?
It's tough. It's really, really tough when you lose a guy like Hyman. It's just, I said this last year. I said it the year before. I cannot stand when teams start using excuses, especially before the playoffs or the finals even start. We gotta play with what we've got. It just is what it is. You never know. What if Draisaitl went down or McDavid went down tonight and they're done? You just got to go with what you got. I think back to 2006. If my memory serves me correctly, Dwayne Rollison got injured for Edmonton and they had to play for whoever the backup was. Somebody help me out. I forget it here. But they went to 7 games. You got to do what you got to do. Look how good Pickard played for Edmonton when they pulled Skinner. Then Pickard got hurt. You got to just work around it. Like you can't be, well, how's it going to be? One period at a time, people.
Yep, for sure. Benny is asking me what clips I want pulled for our social media. For sure, the McDavid legacy clip, for sure. He also said, Serena, because this is a team effort, the Cats and Bolts podcast. Do we want both of us on the screen at once or one at a time? What do you think? Benny's asking us.
Well, Ben, you're doing a great job so far, but if it's too much for you to keep, this is good though. When Rod's talking, he can go on. I don't care.
Yeah. I said, you're the producer. Do what you want. It's good for you. But you always do a great job, Ben.
Yeah, Benny's.
Thanks, guys. I just,
Yeah, appreciate you. So we got goaltending.
We've done it
Bob.
all.
Goaltending, Bob. We talk defense. We talk forwards. Coaching. Not sorry. I got to go with Paul Maurice. He's got the cup. He's not twice Knobloch's age, but he's been in the league 20 times as long. This all goes back to winning. Like if Knobloch wins this Stanley Cup, everybody's saying he makes the best in-game adjustments. I haven't watched the Oilers enough. This is Knobloch from what I'm hearing. Paul Maurice has the edge in coaching for me, but that's just me. Who are you giving it to?
Well, there's a couple different schools of thought here, in my opinion. And here's why I say this. Paul Maurice should have the edge. He's been coaching for a very long time. But if you want bang for your buck, do you want to drink a vat of coffee or can you get the same amount of caffeine from 3 shots of espresso? What I mean by that is Knobloch has only been coaching for a couple of years and look what he has done. And our buddy John Sinclair said it perfectly. The reason Knobloch is good, and this is when they first hired Knobloch, he's a coach. He knows how to coach the team. He knows how to coach the players. He knows how to get out. Nobody can argue that he has gotten more out of his individual players than probably any rookie head coach in National Hockey League history. Look what he's done for the Oilers in the last year and a half. I mean, I would have never seen that coming. So that's going to be hard to say. I think that there's going to be, I will say this, I don't want to hear anybody after this series go, so-and-so outcoached so-and-so. Stop with the outcoached crap. Everything, it doesn't matter. Outcoached. Fucking give me a break. Like people were saying that in the First Nations Cup and there's like, stop looking for a little edge just because you lost or you won or whatever. Who cares? They're to the point where it's like I say about the general managers. Well, I said it about Doug Armstrong on here. No wonder these guys want to pull their hair out because there's nothing they can do when it gets down to the ice. Yes, for the coach they can, but these coaches, they're not going to out-coach each other at different times. Stop looking at that stuff. Who cares?
Oh, I know.
Let him go.
Who's going to give the best speech? Who's going to make the best line combinations? That part of it is overrated. Kelly Francis writes in, she says, I like both on the screen. So Kelly wants it, she'll get it. both of us on the screen at the same time.
Yeah,
Thank
Benny, you
Shelley.
can just leave us on here.
Yeah, if that's easier. I think Joshua Dorr said the same thing. But it's a lot of this. Until you beat the man, you're not the man. So Bob's the man. Paul Maurice is the man. They have the cup, which brings me to, so I'm giving the check mark to the Panthers. If you want to give it the nod block, that's not only fine, it's also not surprising. It's your team. But special teams is big in any series, and it's the Oilers because of what they can do on the power play. Number one power play in these playoffs is them. But then it's the X factor. And that's what scares me about this series. If I wanted the Panthers to win, you can say a lot of things, but the big one is the woo-woo factor or the hunger. Don't think the Panthers don't want to win because they won it last year, right? That's not a thing. But the fact that the Oilers lost last year is a major thing. And Serena, you and I haven't talked about it, but that look in McDavid's eye from a Panthers perspective scares me. It's different.
There's a picture of McDavid and Draisaitl on the bench, and everybody was sharing this as a meme or whatever. And somebody shared it after the last series, and they're like, nobody has scored on this team since these two had that look on their face. And I go back to, you think about Dallas, Vegas, they're good hockey teams. LA, second in the division. Edmonton was better than LA. I mean, obviously, but coming up against Vegas just was not playing their best. Dallas was playing their best. They were playing really well. And Edmonton just stopped them in their tracks. It's not that Dallas played bad. It's just that everything that Edmonton did against Dallas was right and stopped them. Every player, they got on top of Ottinger. They did everything they were supposed to do. Florida did something pretty similar to Carolina, but Carolina was flat. And in the game that Carolina won, Carolina did that to Florida. Florida couldn't get anything going. Everybody's like, we're playing terrible. I'm like, Florida's not playing bad. They just can't get anything going because Carolina finally put the pieces together. And then game 5, they were in control, and then boom. And you can't do that in the Eastern Conference Final. And I don't even know what we were talking about before I started talking about that.
It's all good. Well, JC in Dallas says, I'm interested to see where the Oilers slot Evander Kane. I think they will put him up against the Bennett line, but that would leave a gap in the Oilers' third or fourth line. I don't think they think about it that much as you do,
guys,
JC. I really don't.
Seriously.
Freddie from Winnipeg says, veterans, Corey Perry and Brad Marchand, who will have a better game tonight? Whoever it is, I'm going to tell you, those two guys are proving why they make the money they have and why they've had the career that they've had. This is the 4th Stanley Cup Final for Marchand. And for Perry, his
12? No, I know.
Yeah, what's it say about those guys? They're going to be factors. How big of factors, I don't know, but I respect the hell out of their careers.
Here's why those two are in the position they're in, and they're both going to have a good game. They're seasoned, grizzled old vets. They know what it takes. They both know, especially Corey Perry, what it takes to win a Stanley Cup. They're out there and I'm not saying that the other Panthers don't, but this is fresh. When you won a Stanley Cup, Corey Perry won a Stanley Cup nearly 20 friggin' years ago, guys. He's seen how everything has changed and evolved, and he literally, they're both just factors when they need to be. And they've been around for a long time. But I agree, all these comments, you guys, I love that you guys are commenting. This is probably the most activity we've had on here. But I'm not going to sit here and go, this person against this. Nobody cares. Just win the fucking game. That's all I care about.
Some people are into it. You and I are not. We're not coaches, and I guess we'll follow it as the series goes along. But as far I think about, I was sitting in the Game 3 news conference. Was it Game 3? I think it was Game 3 on the Saturday that I went down there in Fort Lauderdale, and when they announced Reinhart wasn't going to play,
Game 3,
and the reporter goes, "So who's in?" And Paul Maurice goes, "Boquist," and the reporter goes, "In his same spot." And Paul's like, "Yeah, for your lineup card, you can fill it in." Yeah, Boquist is in. I'm like, it's you guys care more about the line matchups than the coaches do, for the love of God. Because it's not about that. The line combos change. The matchups change. It's a fluid situation. You sure as hell don't go into the game with one plan and come out with the same plan. That's what makes them great coaches.
Sure. But we also, in the media these days, we have a lot of people that are reporting on hockey that don't know the game. They've never played the game. If you've never played the game of hockey, it is completely impossible for you to understand the game the way somebody has played it. I don't care how much hockey you watch. You will never understand it until you've played. There's too much movement. There's too many variables. There's too much stuff. I've never played football, like not, tackle football with a uniform on. I'm not going to pretend to know the game of football. I know a lot about football, but I don't know. I've never played the game. And so you have people asking questions and he's just going like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't know. Why are you asking me this? Like, ask me something solid.
I'll ask you something solid. Are you jealous that I'm in Canada? Because I landed in the Toronto airport. There's not a life-size Stanley Cup, a bigger than life-size Stanley Cup right at the bottom of the escalator when you come down with a red ropes around it. I want to say it was 6 feet high. And Jason from Red Deer actually made a joke because I talked about it on my daytime talk show. He goes, that's the closest Toronto's going to get to the cup ever. But then here, people are talking about, I saw something about Corey Perry the other day, and they refer to him as Scory Perry. Like,
oh, you've never heard that? Yeah.
Well, no, I haven't. Somebody was talking about it up here because he's scoring, but it's like June, Canada, everybody's just waiting to get their summer underway, but it's not going to start until the Stanley Cup's over. Everybody's into this series, and that I love.
I know. There are so many times, like, especially like this, that I wish I was back in Canada because especially as an Oilers fan, right? Like, the buzz is there. Like, people literally in Edmonton are putting on Facebook and stuff, like their city is buzzing. And just wait until tonight. I mean, these people are not right upstairs. Like I've said, we become. It's funny because I was telling somebody, I'm like, those people are insane. And then I'm like, wait, I am those people. Like, I am those people. It's just, I don't have the environment around me to support it. But it is such a different atmosphere up there. And these people, it's like when I've been in the US for so long though, that I'm kind of used to it. But like during the Olympics, when the Olympics were in Vancouver, I'm like, oh man, I wish I was back in Canada. Just, for the vibe.
There's some special things about it for sure. Captain Lou, Sports Network, has checked in from Michigan. Lou says, this is going to be an amazing series. I go back and forth on who to pick. Well, I guess we may wind it up here before too long. We've been going close to 30 minutes, I think. Get your comments in, everybody, if you want to see us keep going with whatever you'd like to talk about with this series. I'm a little disappointed Brent from Wellington, Florida has not checked
I was going to say that. I'm like,
his idea to go live.
Which was a great idea because this is happening.
The interaction. But the odds makers have the Oilers in 7. Last year they had the Panthers in 7, and they were right. For my own reasons, I've gone with the Panthers in 6. I don't know if you want to divulge what those reasons are. So I'll say Panthers in 6. I'll say it here right now. And I know you're not going to make a prediction. How does it make you feel that the odds makers have the Oilers in 7?
Oh, Edmonton's going to win. I don't know how many games, but when you were talking about the odds makers, last year in the playoffs, I was sitting at this desk on a different podcast, and they wanted me to talk about hockey. And so I'm talking about hockey, and they're like, the odds makers, this is in maybe the first round. They're like, the odds makers have Florida and Edmonton in the final. I'm like, there's no way. Like, I was like, Edmonton, like, Colorado is going to be strong. And like, I just was like, there's no way. And what's hysterical is, realistically, odds are all statistical, but they've been right every series for the last 2 years. It's crazy to me. I don't put any stock into the odds because obviously the odds change. It's like when Edmonton and Florida were both up 3-1 in their series, and then the odds always change, right? But I don't know how many games it's going to be, but I don't think Edmonton's going to lose. They're just Edmonton, and you guys all know how hard I am on the Oilers, but Edmonton has been an absolute freight train in the playoffs. They lost the first 2 games against LA, And then they won the next 4. And then they started pounding on Vegas. And the only reason they lost a game to Vegas is because they put the puck in their own net. And then the only reason they lost a game to Dallas is because they blew a lead in the third period from penalties. Edmonton, every game that they've won, they've been dominant in at least 2 of the 3 periods. And Florida's been like, the way I look at it is the records. Edmonton's lost 4 games and Florida's lost 5. It doesn't seem that close because Edmonton's just been steamrolling.
Yep.
And when Colorado won the Stanley Cup and they played Edmonton, I was like, oh my God, Colorado is so good. They're going to win the Stanley Cup. And they beat Edmonton. It was like 1-goal games, but I think they swept the Oilers. And I'm like, and they played Tampa in the final. And I said to our buddy, Blake Dodge, who's a Lightning fan, I said, have you watched Colorado play this year? He's like, no, because the games don't start till 10. I go, they're going to destroy Tampa. They're that good. And I said, Colorado, in my opinion, that's the strongest team I've seen since maybe Pittsburgh in the 90s and Edmonton in the 80s. Literally that strong. And I feel like Edmonton is that strong this year.
Well, they have shown it. What I like about being out here in Western Canada, I'm 2 hours behind them in the mountain time zone, so the games are on at a sane time. And I've watched the Oilers, and I'm like, oh, this is what they're talking about. It didn't help that Dallas folded like a cheap Canadian Tire Walmart tent. That's a topic for another time. And Peter DeBoer's post-series comments probably going to get him fired, but what do you got?
Peter DeBoer is getting roasted in Dallas unjustifiably. However, let's talk about old Ben Cobbs. Every comment Ben has made has been about Rod. Hey, Rod. I'm here, Rod. Rod, I want Cats in 5. Reason why Game 5 is my parents' wedding day. Ben, hello. Hi. Hi, Ben Cobbs. Hi, I'm here too.
Well, you know why that is.
Usually Ben's all, hey. Ben, I'm very disappointed. Very disappointed.
Go watch him play hockey sometime like I do.
This is true. He says, is parents' wedding day. Are they getting, wait, your parents are getting married?
I think it's got to be their anniversary.
But that's not, maybe, but it's not the first time I've seen that happen. That's why I'm asking.
Cats in 5 is, there's topics that I would like to get to. I kind of feel like we're out of time here. We got time. Hurry up. Let's go. On the Rod Peterson show today, it's a fun topic where I've seen fans from both teams say the NHL wants the opposition to win. And that's the topic we got to today. I don't want to bring it up twice necessarily, but if the NHL wanted one of these teams to win, and I don't want to think that's the case. I don't think it is the case. But if the NHL did, I would say it's the Oilers, because I think Gary Bettman would want the Oilers to win to get all Canada off his freaking back that he's anti-Canadian. And whenever he retires in the next few years, he can ride off into the sunset and people won't think of him as the anti-Canadian guy. That's what I think. It's so if they had to pick one, it would be the Oilers, but I'm not sure if you agree with that or not.
No, I maybe, I do agree with what you said, that Gary Bettman's probably like, okay, like a Canadian team has got to win because these people are going to kill me.
Yeah.
And, but I mean, whatever, like, it's a business. How many times have I said that on here? This is a business. And like I said on your show earlier today, if every Stanley Cup was won by a Canadian team for the last 30 years, there would be no NHL in the United States. It wouldn't be near what it is. So when you're running a business, you want the profits to come in that regard. And it's like they talk about viewership and this and that and whatever. And it's like, guys, if this was a Oilers Rangers Stanley Cup final, the viewership would be way higher. Nobody cares, so, yeah. But yeah, I do agree with you. Gary Bettman probably is like, yo, let's go.
Well, that is the JC in Dallas says Serena has an oil stain on her Panthers shirt. When we win, we'll make sure to get her a new Panthers shirt. He's just trying to get your goat. He
also says that the Oil steamrolled the West, but let's be honest, none of these teams would have been any match for the Panthers. Wrong. The West is stronger than the East. And if you don't want to listen to me, that came right from the lips of Bruce Cassidy. In the second round against Minnesota, I was in the press conference when Bruce Cassidy validated what I always say. He goes, this is going to piss a lot of people in the East off, but the teams in the West are a lot stronger than the teams in the East. And it goes to show because the series in the West were 2-2 and the series in the East were 3-1. Take that to the bank and cash it. The teams in the West are freaking stronger, period. The only reason Florida got by Toronto is because Toronto chokes. Look at it like that.
Well, it's easy for Bruce to say, worry about your own team, Bruce.
Benny Kopp, Benny
Kopp
Kopp says they're getting married the same day as Game 5. Ben's parents are getting married, you guys. Ben, we need a backstory on this. We need to know.
I know them. Yeah.
Did they get divorced and they're getting remarried? Did they produce you like 50 years ago? Or I know you're not that old, but like,
stepmom.
Oh, okay. I was like thinking, all right.
I know Ben's whole story because I go down and talk to him every game that he's there, and his dad too. So Ben,
our producer Ben is just sitting here staring at me, shaking his head like, what is wrong with you?
So we covered that. I think it's really interesting. I did have this written down about Matthew Tkachuk. This was brought up at the media day yesterday. I don't like, as you know, although I railed on this far longer than before we got together, but I don't like the cameras and the microphones being down all the time around the players. I don't like that, but that's not changing. And they captured Tkachuk and McDavid shaking hands at the end of the series last year, and Tkachuk saying, see you next year. Very clearly that was said. And Tkachuk was asked about that yesterday and at the media day by Emily Kaplan. And she goes, it was a very prophetic comment by you. What made you say that? And he's like, well, we're the best two teams in the NHL. So it's not that hard to believe. He was very humble about that. But let me just say, what kind of effect do you think Tkachuk will have in this series? Because he hasn't been as dominant these playoffs as he was last.
To be honest, I think that he was probably most dominant 2 years ago, or however you want to word it. I just don't think, I think when Tkachuk came here, he was like the fan favorite because he knows how to get people to like him. He was doing this, he was doing that. But you're right. He really has not been that effective in the playoffs. Not saying he's not going to be, but if we're looking at history, I don't think he had that strong of a year. But having said that, far be it from me to stick up from him. I think that the Panthers at first were like, okay, when they first got him, we're going to use him as a goal scorer. And now that might not necessarily be the case. Like, obviously, there's a difference between a goal scorer and a non-goal scorer. For those of you who don't know that, there's guys that are labeled as goal scorers and guys who aren't. And so I'm wondering if that's potentially where they're looking at with Tkachuk is like, you know what? Now they've put him on a line with Sam Bennett. There's a reason that they play together. They might put them out there against McDavid. Well, if you're going to put them out against McDavid, if that's what it happens to be, he's probably not scoring a bunch of goals. So they're using him as a purpose. So to say he's not as effective, maybe because he's not scoring as many goals, sure. But, it's so hard to say what they're looking at him for.
Or points. He's just had a quiet Stanley Cup compared to what he's had before. It's not necessarily that he's had a bad one, but it's led a lot of people to think that he's hurt. And I don't know whether that's true or not. You could also look at it that his best hockey is still coming up in this next series.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, just because he hasn't scored any goals, it's like, I don't know if he's playing a different style, is what I'm saying. But I'm not sure who A is. Whoever's talking shit about my shirt. Toronto never dominated. The fuck they didn't. Toronto dominated the first 2.5 games. Like, what were you watching? Like, they did. Toronto just chokes. This is what you don't understand. The Leafs beat themselves. I wouldn't be patting myself on the back if I was a Panthers fan over beating the Leafs. Everybody beats the Leafs.
We had this chat the other day that I think it was on Carius' show. I said that the Panthers went down 0-2 in that series. Bob was awful. I remember telling people, Bob won't have 2 bad games in a row, and then he did. They said he won't have 3 bad games in a row, and he didn't. And it was like the Panthers just waited for the Leafs to implode, and they did. The Oilers aren't going to implode.
There is absolutely the reason that the Panthers always come back. They always wait. They wait for the other team to make mistakes. That is hockey in the 80s 90s 101. You wait for the other team to make mistakes. You let them wear themselves out. Paul Maurice knew sure as shit that the Leafs were going to wear themselves out and run themselves into the ground and start doing stupid stuff. All you got to do is sit back and wait. You're exactly right. It'll happen. It'll happen. Yeah. Anybody that played the Leafs would have beat them.
Football teams do it too. I've seen it.
Yeah, for sure.
In my time in football. A says, check the tape. We don't need to check
I'm
the
not
tape,
having
bro.
an argument with this.
Watch the game.
Yeah, come on. Really?
Exactly. But thank you. Thank you for the time. It's a great way to end it. Freddie in Winnipeg wants to know who we think will win tonight. I've picked the Panthers because my show co-host Moose picked the Oilers. I'm sure you don't want to make a pick.
Edmonton. I'm always going to pick Edmonton, so I don't know why. I'm always going to pick Edmonton. But Captain Lou says Panthers look so much like the 97-98 Cup winners in Detroit. I don't really think so. I don't think so at all. I think that Detroit was a completely different style of team than the Panthers. Detroit had a ton of Europeans. The Panthers don't. They have some good ones, but their captain was Nick Lidstrom. I mean, Barkov is a forward. Lidstrom is a defense. I just think it's completely different.
That's potato in a lot of ways. I looked this up the other day. The Panthers have 8 Canadians. Trust me, that matters up here. We've been talking about it.
100%.
The Oilers have 12, and you say, no, they got a lot of Europeans, and their captain is Finnish. Lundell, Luosterainen, Forsling, Mikkola, Kulikov. If maybe he's Russian, but that's still European. 8 Canadians is not a lot, but it's worked for them. So,
well, their captain was Eiserman. I mean, whatever. Apples and oranges here.
And Stacy, thank you for. Oh my God, you guys are keeping us on the line here. I gotta go. But Stacy says, saying Toronto didn't dominate is like Brandamore saying we didn't sweep them 2 years ago.
Guys,
that's funny. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 08-09. Yes, you're right. Fair, you're right, Captain Lou. I was thinking of 08-09. You're absolutely
Captain
right.
Lou knows his stuff. But Brindy, go ahead.
That's hilarious what Stacy said, because it's like, guys, it's okay if you weren't the best team. Hey, Panthers fans, you weren't the best team in the final last year and you still won. It's okay. It's just the way it goes. Who cares?
I don't know how you would say that they weren't the best team. That would go to our grave. They won. So
sorry, my
it's
computer
like Brindamore saying we weren't swept. You were. So
yeah.
Okay.
Guess Rod has to leave. Rod has to go.
Gotta go. Do you want to stay on here and field these questions? I mean, just one last thing, just with Brindamore. You addressed it earlier today on my other show, but he came out and said, yeah, next time I'll shake hands in the players' line. Maurice didn't want to, and that's his thing, and he won the series, so I let him have his way. I was like, wow, it was a thing, because I was watching the handshake. Everybody was making a big deal out of it, and I'm like, this can't be that big of a deal. These guys respect each other. No, it was a big deal. Brindy wanted to go in the player line, and Paul didn't. I'm literally still talking about it. I can't believe it.
Jesus, these people. JC, the best team wins every time. Have you watched sports ever in your life?
They do. In a series, they do.
Whatever. First of all, Brent from Wellington is dead to us. The rest of you guys, thank you all for commenting, for doing everything. Whatever else, Roddy, any final words before we scoot? Oh my God.
Kelly says, great show. Great job, Ben. Thanks, Rod and Serena. Go Cats. Enjoy the games, everybody. This has been a lot of fun.
Have a great day, guys.